Chiefs draft prep is underway, and it's coming down to this. Can you make a deal with someone in this league that gets you where you need to be? We're going to get to that today with Chiefs Digest editor-at-large, Matt Derrick, today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, friends and neighbors. It's Locked On Chiefs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for free on every platform, starting with YouTube, where you can get our episodes first and then check out the audio feeds as well. We appreciate if you would like, sub, and hit the bell here on this platform. Maybe check out a second show of the Locked On Network for your next listen. We appreciate you making us your first. Lot to go over here. Matt Derrick's here from Chiefs Digest. We're going to take a look at right now the calmest before the storm is we're looking at 9 days out from the NFL draft beginning. I will be in town. We'll have a lot for you there. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, where you right now can get our athletic matrix as well as the draft guide by going to rogueapc.com and using that code MATRIXLOC. It'll get you a nice little discount. Big time overhaul. Watched more prospects and did actual formal ratings than we've ever done before. Me and my team, including Dan Harms, have done a ton of work. Please check that out and consider it. You want that information before we get to the draft. You can also find our stuff over at NFL 33, where my quarterback rankings are going up today. And you're going to see my edge rankings in the very, very near future before the end of the week. So check that out. As we get back and we get into the flow of this, Matt, this is that quiet time. And we're going to talk about what the process is, particularly for the Chiefs and Brett Veach himself. But just as we take a step back from what all this hubbub has been, this process, overall, even the signing of Blaine Gabbert that we're going to talk about later in the show, that's kind of a under the surface of the water signing, like several have been. It's been a very quiet and almost dormant offseason, in my opinion. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, and in that regard, to a degree, the Chiefs are, I think, a little bit indicative around the league. This has been, I think, a less boisterous offseason, free agency period than it has been maybe in recent years. I don't know if that's just maybe it's a little bit of recency bias or just Chiefs bias as far as how they've been involved, since it's been mostly players leaving than coming in. With the Chiefs, they haven't had as big as signings as maybe they've had in the past, and there hasn't been as much scuttlebutt. I mean, we're not really hearing the Chiefs as far as a lot of rumors involving maybe some trades or movement in the draft, anything like that. But you're right, this is the quiet before the storm. I mean, Monday is when things really kind of start to take off. I mean, and even here in Kansas City, for the folks here, I think most of the draft talk right now is just the setup, because it's in Kansas City for once. So I talked to a lot of people who've been driving by Union Station and watching how everything gets set up for that. I mean, it's going to be a real show, and it's going to be everybody's getting excited about that. But Monday is when you'll really start to, I think, hear whether the Chiefs get connected to any of that at all. But that's when you'll start hearing maybe the buzz about some deals. I mean, I know I've already heard a little bit about Lamar Jackson buzz and, that kind of thing. So it's starting to heat up a little bit. But right now, behind the scenes, what's happening, for the Chiefs, I mean, we'll hear from Brett Veach on Thursday. And I'd expect, we'll hear what he typically says at this point, that their draft board is pretty much locked down. Right now, they're going to be running through scenarios. They'll be going through their own version of mock drafts. Just talk about what they're going to do in certain situations. If player X falls to a certain spot, or it's Friday night, where would they be willing to trade back or move back to get certain players? And for the last couple of weeks, I'll bet anything, because this is how Brett operates. He's been reaching out to fellow GMs around the league and other counterparts that he knows, to just kind of gauge where teams are. I mean, he will have, by the time the draft starts next week, he will have talked to every team in the league to find out what their interests are, if they're looking to move up or down, if they're looking to buy players or sell players. And we've seen that sometimes those conversations take a long time to run to fruition. I mean, they're picking up the receiver earlier this, now I'm completely blanking on the guy's name.
Justin Watson's return?
No. Why am I completely? This is the greatest moment in podcast history.
It is. Is it Ricky James or Richie James that you're thinking of?
No, what I'm thinking of and conflating my stories. I guess I'm thinking about Kadarius Toney. So
okay. Well, yes.
hey, everybody. You're welcome to the greatest 30 seconds in podcast history, right there. As I forget Kadarius Toney's name and when he was acquired, but no, I mean that was basically the first conversation the Chiefs had was in March of last year, and that was basically a draft conversation. That was hey, are you interested in moving anybody? Well, here's a guy we might be interested in. And those were draft conversations. So sometimes draft conversations don't have to pay off immediately. Sometimes it can be something, a delayed reaction that happens down the road.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. We'll talk about landing spots and how that comes about here after the break in the second segment. But right now, it does feel like all the hubbub around being in Kansas City is more about being in Kansas City and not about potential moves that the Chiefs are making. I think so far what we've seen, obviously Juwan Taylor, Charles Menahue, solid pickups, guys that can start for you, guys you can project into a number of different roles. We'll leave it at that. But those were really the cornerstones, I think. Bringing back Justin Watson, all the receivers that they've brought in might have a thread here or a trait here that they can kind of lift themselves up into this offense in particular with. But in the end, I think even the Drew Tranquil signing, who looks to maybe be in a position to play a lot of snaps for this defense, this all feels like building the foundation, setting the floor. It does not, in my mind, set anything out of the realm of possibility come draft night for putting the cherry on the top of that foundation. Does that ring true for you?
It really does. I mean, especially the last few signings, because I think obviously, bringing back Justin Watson, that's another one of the little pieces right there. Everything that we've seen the Chiefs do over the last couple of weeks, to me, has really been about making sure that you go into the draft without having an obvious hole. And the Juwan Taylor fits into that even at the very beginning of free agency, because that was a signing that was intentional for the Chiefs to give them flexibility to be able to go into the draft and say, you know what, we don't technically need a tackle. We've got a left tackle we can have in Juwan Taylor. We got a right tackle, whether it's Lucas Niang or somebody else. We got some guys that we can play there that if they had to go out and play a game, I mean, and that is Brett Veach's philosophy, is that he wants to be able to go into a draft with the roster complete enough and full enough that he doesn't have a glaring need, that he doesn't have to go out and get a specific player at a specific spot. And that's not just about the first round. I mean, that's later on too, because honestly, I mean, if you don't make the moves you've made at receiver to pick up a couple of guys there, I'd be looking at this. If I'm in Brett Veach's, group right now in the front office, I'd be going to Brett's office and saying, you know what, we can't get past round 5 without a receiver. And that's not where you want to be as a GM, that you have to take a player at a specific spot, because Brett's been in that spot before and it doesn't go well whenever you put yourself in that spot. So I right now I see a roster and a draft board set up that the Chiefs don't have to take any particular player at any particular spot. They can go best available player, and they can also go and get a player. I mean, once again, if a guy that you rate highly starts dropping, they've got the resources to go get them. So I think Brett Veach has set himself up perfectly for this draft to be able to take advantage of it from a standpoint of being able to make the moves that they want to make. They can move up, they can move back. They've got everything in front of them, and there's no spot where you say, if they don't come out with a player at this position, they're behind the 8 ball. They're not in that spot.
Yeah, they want to set it up that way so that they have versatility. I think that's exactly what they have. But what does that versatility let you do? We're going to talk about some scenarios right on the backside of this, because right now I got to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. They are the future if you want to get into everything going on right now, whether it's home runs, no hitters, all the baseball stuff, because MLB action is right there on FanDuel right now. It's the #1 sports book in America. You can take care of it. And right now, for you new customers, you get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets. If your first bet does not win, just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. It's right here below me. You can place your first bet, and if you don't win, you get $1,000 back in bonus bets right to your account. All you have to do is make sure that you set it up and that you put your money out there where you want it to be. So don't miss your chance right now for a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets if you join FanDuel today with our link right here, FanDuel.com/lockedon, all one word. Go sign up. FanDuel, the official sports book partner of the MLB, the NBA, and the NFL. Now, being a partner is being a partner, and Matt Derrick is going to be a partner and explain to me some of the way that this team in particular maneuvers, because like you said, the versatility that this offseason has given you is that you can stay put, you can move around, you can move up, you can move back, but you do have to kind of have your board, and that's kind of the basis for everything, folks. My board will come out either Friday night or Monday morning, whichever I can get it done by, so that you can have that. It'll be free and downloadable on NFL33.com. And that will tell you everybody that I put on the board, and I'm pointing up here to the sky because it's over on my television because I need to see it big. But that sets it. The Chiefs are notorious for not having an overly large board. Somewhere between 150 and 180 players is what we usually hear. So it's not a full thing. Maybe there's 20 guys in the first round. That's about where I come out each year, maybe 22 at the most. If there is an identified target, is this something, Matt, that you think we see action pre-draft? Are they talking right now this week, hey, where can I get to now? Or is this a McDuffie situation like we saw last draft where it's a fall that then puts somebody within striking distance that they react to?
Well, and the Chiefs have been in both those different spots. I mean, a couple of different positions in the past. One with Patrick Mahomes was they knew that they wanted a particular player, and it was just a matter of making sure that they got to the spot where they want. I mean, we haven't seen any indication that the Chiefs are in that spot right now, but if they were, I mean, if there was a player that they view as a top 15 player that's definitely got a first round grade on them, and they feel like that they need to be able to get to X spot in the draft to get that player, then what Brett Veach has been doing is going back to March, is calling teams and saying, look, are you interested? Are you willing to trade your first round pick? If not, they'll move on somewhere else. But if they find a willing buyer, it'd be like, okay, hey, Ed, let's keep in touch. Right about now is the time where they're now following up and saying, okay, if they've got a player on their board the Chiefs want to get to, and they think, for instance, they need to get to 15, this is where Brett Veach is calling up somebody and saying, hey, this is where we'd like to try and get a player available. What would you want for it? And work out the compensation, because these deals are not worked out while a team's on the clock on Thursday night or Friday night. They have worked out and to a T. I mean, with the Chiefs, and the Bills, they had a conversation with several teams about where they needed to move to. Now, the Bills were the one that they circled because they thought they had to get to 10 to get Patrick Mahomes. So that was the one. But, a week or two before that deal, John Dorsey and Brandon Beane had the terms worked out for a deal, and it was just a matter of making the call on Thursday night and saying, hey, are you okay with the deal? Let's do it. Now, it's different when you've got a player like Trent McDuffie that's going to be falling down to a certain spot, and last year was a pretty good example of that. I mean, that was, the Chiefs have a player with a first-round grade, did get past, the mid-teens, and now all of a sudden it's like, okay, now it's not only just, where do you need to get, but who do you need to get in front of? And the Chiefs, for instance, they felt like they need to get in front of Buffalo if they wanted to get Trent McDuffie. So now it's like, you got to make sure that you're getting in front of Buffalo, that you got a little bit of protection there. And when you get to a draft pick that, you're ready to go. And now, once again, you make a trade with the team, and it's not the first time you've talked to them. You've discussed the parameters. Okay, hey, we got a guy we like. Won't tell you who it is, but just want to see, hey, if 21 gets there and our guy's on the board, what will you take for it? Work it out so that, once again, on Thursday, it's not the first time you're discussing it. You can say, hey, our guy's there. We make the deal. That's what right now the nuts and bolts are being put to. If the Chiefs have a player or two that they really want at a certain spot and they're willing to go get it, they're ironing out that. Conversely, Chiefs are filling those calls too. I mean, they're probably getting some calls from teams who are saying, hey, are you interested in moving up? Or are you interested in moving out of the first round if your guy's not there at 31? Because teams want to know that. They want to know if the Chiefs, because, hey, there's been reports. Chiefs kind of joke to us that they don't want to move out of the first round. We'll see if that's what they're telling teams. But that's a consideration. So once again, none of these conversations that we talk about with trades, hardly any of them start on the draft night. I mean, if anything, they've been in the weeks and sometimes months.
And it comes down to, how do you get that done? This is a team based on relationships a lot of the time. And obviously there's relationships in India. There's relationships with Poles in Chicago. There's relationships all over the place. And it's not just Brett Veach's either. So Do you feel like this year, given how quiet it's been from the organization, is this something where we're seeing no activity at the surface, but there might be a lot of things going on in the background, particularly with more and more connections around the league at the GM level?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And and as more has progressed, as that Brett Veach gets into this job, he's got different contexts and there's people that he's talking to. I mean, not that he wasn't calling GMs before, but in 2018, he might have been reaching out to his old friends in personnel departments and everything, and starting at those conversations and finding out things. Now he's got better connections, and he's got better relationships with guys around the league. So now fellow GMs are probably his first call everywhere. But there's a shorthand there for all of them, and they rely on that as far as those relationships go, so that for instance, I mean, I know Brett Veach's got a pretty good relationship with Les Snead in Los Angeles, and and there's other teams around the league that he's built up. You mentioned Ryan Poles in Chicago. These are some guys that he can call up and they can have talks about a trade in a matter of seconds. I mean, they don't need to have, and more likely than not, they've had some conversations in the past that have built on that. And every time they talk, they probably talk about players that they like and who they don't like, so that when moments come up down the road, you kind of have an idea, okay, this is what the Rams are interested in, or this is, who they're looking to unload. I mean, you kind of have an idea in the back of your head what these teams are looking for, because you're picking up that intelligence all the time.
And that intelligence is what it comes back to. And that's not necessarily just at the GM level. It's also about who your backup quarterback is. We're going to talk about the newly acquired backup for this team right after this. Now, Matt's in a unique position. So, folks, if you don't know, Matt happens to be a Tiger through and through, and I think that it's fairly evident if you read between the lines. But I said about a month ago, I thought my two favorite options were ex-Tigers coming back to the fold. I would love to have seen Daniels come back again. I think Chase is just a perfect fit all the time. I think the personality is there. I'm a little surprised that Gabbert, who's been a little bit more of a journeyman, a little bit more of a guy that helps out in a room rather than like the jovial personality type, but it clearly feels like there's a fit. They signed the man. So tell me, in your perspective at this point in his career, what does Blaine Gabbert bring to the table?
A ton of experience. I mean, that's one of the things is that, Blaine, hey, it's easy to look at him as being a first round draft pick that didn't work out in Jacksonville, but you look at where he's been, and he's played for a lot of people, a lot of great coaches, and some with great quarterbacks. I mean, between San Francisco, I think he was in Arizona for a bit, Titans. The big one was, being a lot backup for the last few years in Tampa Bay and playing, with Tom Brady. He's played in a lot of systems. He's had good experience. He spent us a lot of time though in West Coast offenses, so he's got a lot of experience there. I'm with you. I mean, I thought that there were maybe really three quarterbacks that I thought that the Chiefs would have a good fit for as far as their quarterback room this year. And I thought that Blaine might even be a better fit right now than Chase. As big a fan of Chase as I am as a backup quarterback. And what are you looking for in a backup? I mean, honestly, if you're Kansas City, yeah, you want a quarterback that you feel can go out there and keep the show running for a few weeks if Mahomes has to go down. But, you're also looking for a sounding board. You're looking for a guy that has been around the league long enough that he's seen everything, that he's got enough in his mind that, he's picked up from guys like Tom Brady and, been in, rooms with Bruce Arians, everything. I mean, he's been around guys who know what they're doing, and he can bring that into the room. That's what's been invaluable about having guys like Chad Henne and Matt Moore around for Patrick Mahomes, because there's guys with 10, 12, 15 years experience that can say, okay, look at on film, here's what I see. It's a different perspective. And honestly, I think from a game standpoint, if you had to play with a quarterback, Blaine's got a lot of great characteristics that, with a winning team, that I think he can keep the show running. I mean, I don't think Blaine Gabbert's the kind of guy that's going to go out there and be a 2-15 quarterback for the Chiefs. I mean, I think that he can win him some games if necessary. He's a big guy, big arm. I mean, there's a lot to like. I mean, there's a reason why he was a number one draft or first round draft pick at one point. So yeah, I think it made a lot of sense from just a fit standpoint, the kind of quarterback that he is with what the Chiefs offense is right now. That experience that he brings is going to be invaluable for Mahomes. I mean, once again, it goes back. There's no guarantee that he makes the team. I think he will, because I think the Chiefs want that veteran sounding board in there specifically for Mahomes.
Agreed. And I had to look it up while you were explaining that. It was Blaine Gabbert backing up Chad Henne for 2 years in Jacksonville. I didn't realize the crossover was that significant. I thought they might have been ships passing in the night. So anytime Jacksonville moves on from a quarterback, folks, keep him in mind for down the line. But I like the way that you put that, though. You have to contribute to the room, and you have to have that experience. The sounding board is maybe the most critical aspect of it. But I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole here. But I've heard Jason Kelce talk a lot about what Jalen Hurts brings to their offense. He just got a massive deal too, right? But the thing that I think is different is I don't think anything's changed in terms of Andy's attitude. Patrick Mahomes is not running sneaks, even if he gets pushed. So the question becomes to me, who has inherited that? Is it Blaine Gabbert? Do you still feel he has the athleticism to come in and grind those things out? Or is Blake Bell surviving solely on his ability to take a snap?
That's a really good question, because I've wondered if the Chiefs are going to pick up a philosophy of the Eagles, which is that until the quarterback push gets banned, I don't know why every team in the league is not running it. Right. Now, you're not going to be pushing Patrick Mahomes. I'm not even sure the Eagles should be pushing Jalen Hurts anymore. But Blaine Gabbert is probably more of a, hey, if you wanted to use him as a sneak kind of guy, the guy's 6'5", 240. I mean, Blaine's big. So, he can take a little bit of punishment. So I'd almost be willing to use Blaine, hey, if you got a 4th and 1 situation, I'd almost be willing to put Blaine out there, because Blaine can also throw the football too. I mean, if you want to trip people up, I mean, you can be he probably gives you a little bit more trickery than even Blake Bell does. But I'm curious about what the Chiefs might do in those, because, I mean, Andy Reid's not afraid to steal good ideas.
No.
And frankly, everybody in the league should be stealing the Eagles quarterback sneak until it gets stopped or banned. One or the other. Yeah. But I'm not having anybody pushing Patrick Mahomes from behind. No. So you got to find somebody else. Blaine, he's a big guy to try and push, but
that natural extension all by itself helps you a little bit. And so that was the first thing that I thought of when I saw this signing, is like, that's somebody that can actually be the backup quarterback in that situation without, I mean, maybe it's a little bit of a tell, but I mean, Blake Bell lining up and doing a short motion in the backfield, what's coming. So I think that's pretty plain. The question that I take beyond that is, what does this do for the complexion of what happens next at the quarterback room? There's been a lot of thought this season, a lot of folks who wanted to see Steve Michel become the backup. Always felt like the veteran was the way that Andy wanted to go. But I don't think this precludes them from taking a quarterback in the draft. Do you?
Absolutely not. I mean, what the Chiefs have right now on the roster, I mean, you've got one, now with Blaine Gabbert, you've got a veteran that, is his best days are behind him. I mean, it's not like Blaine Gabbert's going to come in and all of a sudden win a starting job. I mean, he is what he is. I mean, he is the guy that's designed to go out there and just keep the show running when your starter goes down. It's entirely possible that if the Chiefs had to play for an extended period of time without Patrick Mahomes, maybe they do go with Shane Buechele as the next guy up. I mean, you've got different options there, but outside of that, you don't have anything invested. I mean, Buechele, undrafted free agent. Chris Oladokun was a guy that was drafted by the Steelers, but they picked him up. I mean, there's no draft pick invested in him either. So it's been a while since the Chiefs have drafted a quarterback. If there's somebody out there that they think that they can develop, I mean, we know Andy Reid's past. He's not opposed to drafting a guy late and seeing if he can turn him into something and turn him into future draft picks. It's been a while since they've done it, but he's obviously not opposed to doing it. It's just how much kind of time and resources can you put into that, especially when you got a couple of other guys that you like. But with 10 draft picks, I mean, to me, there's some years you go into the draft and would say there's zero chance the Chiefs taking a quarterback. This year, I would say it's not zero. I think there's a greater chance than that, but it doesn't mean it's likely.
Right. I just think the day 3 guys are pretty intriguing this year, and there's more than one guy that I could see in particular being like, maybe I could turn him into some commodity for us at some point. So interesting concept.
Anytime there's a day 3 BYU quarterback, I think the Chiefs are going to be interested.
Right.
Too.
Okay. Fair enough. I was trying not to say it out loud, but
I'll say it out loud.
Okay, cool. Before I let you go then, since you brought it up, what about the BYU tackle? How important is doubling down in this draft? And do you think that Andy's just find somebody with that logo on their helmet that I can bring in and try to coach up?
Well, I think I mean, we joke about the BYU pipeline and everything with Andy Reid. And, and part of it is just that I think he feels like he gets certain players, with a certain ethic that's going to fit in with what he does. And that's one of the reasons why he's always looked at it. I mean, I think there's always been, if he gets an opportunity to help out somebody from BYU, he's going to do that. Andy Reid doesn't give away roster spots though. So, it's got to be somebody who's got to work and it's got to be able to put into it. But I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, Andy Reid certainly feels like that, with the development of what players go through at BYU and the coaching there, he always feels like that there's a base there for players that if they've got the talent, he feels like that's a good stepping stone for them.
I can't argue, so I will let the man do what he does. It's like he's really good at it or something. So that is it for us today. That's where we stand the week before. Now, Matt will be back with us next Wednesday as I'm traveling, and you guys are starting to hear right about the last-minute hubbub. So we will give you the inside goose from there. Make sure you check out everything at ChiefsDigest.com where you can see Matt's work. And, Matt, thank you for your time as always.
Always a pleasure, Ryan. Getting excited for next week.
It's almost here. Folks, thank you. Make sure you check out and become an everydayer. We would like you to come back. We're here 5 days a week. We're always covering a different topic. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about what maybe those trade scenarios can be. And then I have some special guests coming up that I've had a chance to talk to over the last few days. You guys are really going to like seeing some old friends and some new faces. So keep it around here. Thanks for being with us, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.